Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. It's first impressions video time, and today we're having a look at this. It's the Avro Lancaster nose, which is a kit from Border Models. It's 1/32 scale and it was formerly designed by Wingnut Wings. Is a little bit too big to get on camera, so I've had to uncouple my iPad from its holder so you can get a look at the box. What we've got is a nice piece of artwork with this Lancaster Phantom of the Raw, which I guess is one of the paint options that we're going to get in the kit. And then you can see there's some other Lancasters in the background. Messerschmitts, one very close. So yeah, nice piece of artwork. It's quite a deep box, I mean, it's almost my hand span deep. And on the sides, it's got a depiction of the decals. It's got a couple of quick links. Gives us a basic computerized CAD image of what that might look like when it's built, from the outside at least. The sides have the same information, and then on this side here we have a couple of examples of the paint scheme. So I don't know whether we've only got two, but it's certainly showing two there, which are fairly distinct and different. We'll have a better look in a minute. So yeah, quite a decent box. Now, if you're not sure that you know the history of this, let me tell you a little bit about it. So originally this was a Wingnut Wings project. So as most people are probably aware, Wingnut Wings back in 2020 were working on a 1/32 scale Avro Lancaster, and in that process they also were looking at doing a nose only version, which you can see here, and the reason for that is obvious, that there's just not enough space for everyone to have a 1/32 Lancaster in the house, so this gives them a further option. So it was a great little idea. Though it says Border on the box, essentially you're getting a Wingnut Wings designed kit, one of their very last kits before they started running into problems. Border, my understanding is Border have finished this off, so the tooling and design wasn't completely finished, but when we have a look inside, fairly sure we're going to see all the hallmarks of Wingnut Wings. Now it does tell us that we get a complete internal structure of the aircraft nose, so it's got a full interior. There's photo etch parts included, clear parts included, decals, and a nose mount, which is this stand here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the video. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look at the instructions. This is my first Border Models kit, so I'm not sure what to expect from the instructions. I've heard rumours that their instructions aren't the best, but I'm going to judge for myself. What we have is a rather thin A4 colour semi-gloss instruction manual. We've got the copy of section of the artwork on the front. Other than that, it tells you nothing. And then on the back it says Border BF008 Lancaster nose. So and gives you a side profile technical drawing style of what you're getting in the kit, which is basically all of the Lancaster pretty much forward from the wing root. You can just see the wing root there, and then it's mounted on this little stand here, and the nice thing about it is you can see that the angle of the Lancaster is correct for if it was on its wheels on a runway, that angle is correct. So that's quite a nice little feature. They've not sort of tilted it so it's straight on. That in some ways would have looked perhaps a little bit odd. So this is how most people would view one of these aircraft, unless they were up in the air with it. So nice little touch, that, I think, as a starter. And then as we turn over first page, we have a sprue map, which is showing us that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sprues of plastic, a decal sheet, and some photo etch. Is that? Yeah, so that looks like the clear parts. That's your stand. So effectively, that is what you're going to get in the way of plastic parts, but there certainly looks like there's a lot of them. Then we get a bit of history, which is nice, and there is some Lancaster photographs. I'm not going to say the reference pictures because they're way too small to make out anything, so they're just some images, just in case you're not quite aware what a Lancaster is. And then we are straight into the build, which, well, first thing I'm noticing is that we haven't been given a key to tell us what we're doing and what things represent. So I'm just going to flick to the back and see if there's maybe a key at the back or something. Nope. Nope. No, there is no key, so you're going to have to work this out. Hopefully it's all intuitive, but here we are. Make sure that's in shot. Okay, so we're starting with the pilot seat, and we've got some photo etch harnesses for it, which is really nice. What we can see is we've got an option, harness on, harness off. I guess that's if you want to put a pilot figure in. Don't think it comes with a pilot, but I'm sure we'll find that out as we flick through the instructions. And it seems to be that the part number is in the little blue box there, and then the brownie colour shows the part that you're adding, is what I'm gathering from looking at what's happening here. So we're starting with the cushions, and then we're putting the seat sides on. There is a little arrow to show you, but it's basically it's quite basic, isn't it? Yeah. Then we head down to putting it onto its little bit of floor pan. You can see that we've got a lot of parts that are sort of moulded, a lot of features, I should say, that are moulded into the parts, which is very typical of Wingnut Wings. Rather than a high part count, you've got parts that are crafted carefully. Then, okay, I don't know what a lot of these parts are, so I'm not going to be able to call out their names or anything, but we can see there's a fair amount of plumbing and stuff being added, so it looks rather detailed, doesn't it? And then we've got our dials and what have you, which that looks like that's a single piece. I'm interested, is there a flat version for decals, or are we painting it, or individual decals? Be interested to see. When we flip over the page, looks like we have internal bulkheads. So that answers one of the questions I had, was could you cut the side out and be able to see in from the side? And I think the answer to that is going to be no. So the only real way you could do that is to leave one side off, maybe, which, yeah, I'm not sure about. Anyway, what we've got is a lot of moulded in detail, so there's a lot of detail painting to be done. Again, very typical of Wingnut Wings, that you're doing a lot of detail painting on each individual part before you plot them together. But you can see radio sets, the plotting table and what have you. There's a little instruction to remove that. There's no explanation as to why that is. Is it an option? Is it a different model of Lancaster? Doesn't really say. Then we've got photo etch straps again going on onto that seat, and we ending up with a floor pan that's got the pilot seat that we've added before, another seat there at the back, and a bulkhead with some form of equipment on, this equipment here. So appears to be nice and busy, which is what we're looking for. And then when we put that with all of these parts here, some of which have been added, you're going to have a very busy interior. We can see that is now being fitted into that one sidewall piece. We have an option of seat up or down. So depending on how you prefer the look, I guess, you can go with whichever you prefer. And then we're adding the other side. Now, we've not really seen what's going on in this other side, other than adding this seat. So again, there's quite a bit in there, a little bit of detail painting again. Yeah, okay, that all looks good. It looks fairly straightforward, which is nice. That's what we're hoping for. Okay, this looks like we're moving towards the very front of the nose here, because we can see that starting to curve in, and we've got individual ribs to add, which means we're going to be able to get in and clean up this cabling and maybe just scrape behind it, round it off a little bit. So that'll be nice if we can get in there and do that. All sorts of little bits and pieces going in. I think by the looks of it so far, the only photo etch is the seat harnesses, and again that would be fairly familiar for Wingnut Wings. Building up some cushions here, and then we are putting those. It basically is 3 sections from what I can gather. We've got a floor section, 2 sidewalls, and that makes this section here that goes right on the very front forward of the pilot. So they're calling this section the bomb aimer. And then this next section is called nose assembly, and it's sort of running in a Wingnut Wings way, where they have one page with you slip all these parts and sub-assemblies together. So the feel is Wingnut Wings, although the detail is absolutely not there. Here, as we look at the outer walls of the aircraft, we are now seeing that we've got some drilling and stuff to do, and it is telling you what those holes are for. Rebecca Aerial, mid-1944. Window dispenser, late 1943. It's giving you options, but I don't know enough about the aircraft to know which or what I should do. It's not saying for paint scheme 1 do this, for paint scheme 2 don't do this. It's just giving you the option. So you're going to have to do some research. Yeah, well, certainly I will have to do research because I have no clue. Then when we go to this next section, we've got more drilling, and it's the same issue. And why have I got question marks in different colours? Again, I have no key here, so I don't really understand what these different coloured boxes means. It's looking like blue is late, green is early. Well, what's that? Is that on all of them maybe? But then why has it got a question mark? I have a question mark on all of that. What you're telling me and why? It doesn't give you that information. So that's a bit annoying, isn't it? Then we are putting on the turret. We can see that going in, and then we're putting in the outside. So those will be clear parts. Is that going to be a single moulded piece then? Looks like a plastic rear section, which we'd expect, and then a clear plastic part there. One thing that is obviously omitting, which I haven't mentioned, is there is no call out for paint instructions for any of this at this stage. Given that this is interior, that's fairly important. There'll be a lot of different colours going on, but none of that is being called up. So at this stage, it's just purely building the plastic parts. Then as we get to this section here, we've got the outer skin on now. We've got a frame for the glazing. Okay. Again, we've got options, but it doesn't tell us what those options relate to. So you've got some work here to understand what's right and what's wrong, because I have no clue. Telling us to put some rigging there. Rigging times 4. Okay, what size? Don't know. And so guess, more research again. Yeah, that, see, if this was a Wingnut Wings instruction, that'd be blown up and it'd say use 1.5mm or whatever. It's a shame. And we flip over and we are building up the gun emplacement. This one here, you can see that seems to be made up of many parts. Again, no colours being called out. So what is that? Is it all black? Is it all aluminium? Have we got rubber hoses? Have we got hoses wrapped in tape? What colour are they? There's nothing at all. Looks like a nice assembly. Looks really quite detailed as well. And then we've got more photo etch harnesses coming in. We can see we've got little parts being put in to add some detail. So it's going to look really, really busy. So it's going to look absolutely superb. I have no doubt about it. So we're building up all of that, and then we're placing that into a glazed nose. Nose assembly now, which basically is adding the clear parts. So that, what they've done is they've given you an inside frame, which obviously you can paint, and then you've got clear parts which have got the outside frame on, which allows you to mask just one side. I'm hoping that this will line up in such a way that you won't see any of that from the inside. So that makes painting of your cockpit canopy quite simple, actually. So I like that. That's an interesting idea. I've not seen that before. We have part of the Bombay doors here, but we've not got an option for open. I'm guessing modelers with a little bit more time than I probably are going to have may be able to get in there and scratch build the Bombay, because you're going to have the floor pan, so that must be doable. And I'm guessing on the full kit you can have an option to have the Bombay doors open, so there'll be plenty of reference material about to do that. So that should be easy enough if you wanted, which I think would be a nice little feature. But anyway, we're building up the bomb sight now and putting that in. We've got some other parts, and then the little glass noses going on, and then what it's calling the equipment blister. It's talking about some options for the late version, but again, I have no idea. Whether that'll become clear in a minute, I don't know. So essentially, that is the build done with the blister. Other than this nose mount. Now what they've done is they've gone with brick, which I sort of understand a little bit on the base, but I don't get at all on that. That's on the upright. You know, I could justify a clear part. I could justify smooth. I'm struggling a bit with brick. At what point is this going to be mounted through brick? So yeah, I don't know. But this has been designed in such a way as it looks a bit like a shadow. So you could possibly, we'll have a look at the parts in a minute, fill it, smooth it, I don't know, and paint it black to look like a shadow. I think that might look quite nice. Anyway, more clear parts going in. Not quite sure what they are. Drift recorder, I don't really know what that is. Then we have some final, once it's mounted on its mounting stand, we have some final details going on. So pitot tube, which they talked about earlier in the instructions, and Rebecca aerials, which they talked about earlier in the instructions where we were drilling the holes. So some of the more delicate parts being mounted in there. Looks like we've got clear parts for things like camera or camera with cover. It gives you options. Again, when do I apply that? What do I apply that on? Okay, this is our last page now, and it's changing to landscape. So let's have a look at this. Right, so it's showing us where to put the decals for Victoria's Virgin on one side. Then it's showing us where to put the decals for Phantom of the Raw, again just on one side. So I don't know if there's decals for the other side. Do they mirror? Doesn't tell you. Then we've got Mickey the Moocher. And that's a nice set of decals, that actually, isn't it? But why is that a white silhouette and this is a black silhouette? Is there a difference? Don't know. I'm guessing those numbers are the decal numbers. So that says summer 44. So do I assume that's a late version? That says 1944. So do I assume that's a late version? Lancaster, don't know. Is it just an early Lancaster that survived to 44 and that's the nose art it's got in 1944? Don't know. It's not telling you. And this, it doesn't even give you a year. So is that a real one? It says 424 Tiger Squadron, so I'm guessing it's a real one, but there's no year, no information, so unimpressed with that, I've got to be honest. Then we've got a decal sheet image, but not of all the decals, it's just the decals for the equipment on the inside. So we've got dials. I think that must be the plastic part number, and it's showing you an image of the decals but not referencing the decal number. That's pretty poor as well. So how do I know I've got the right one? Because those two look the same. In fact, they are the same. They are the same. It's even the same part. Is there two of those sets? Lordy. Painting and marking guide. So it's referencing MIG ammo, which I'm fine with because I use MIG ammo paints, but not everyone I like. And it's just basically giving us a basic name as well: gunmetal, matte black, medium brown, dark earth, and dark green. So there is paint instructions for the outside fuselage only. Wow, that is pretty poor. Weathering steps with ammo products. So basically this is a promotion for MIG ammo, this bit here, and Border have not bothered to look into what you need to do. They've just said use these MIG paints, and probably MIG ammo have even told them what colours they'd use. But there is no colour referencing from the inside. On a kit this expensive, that is not acceptable. That is really, really bad. And the first thing that does is put me off any further border models, because as a modeller, I spend my money and I expect to be able to build the model completely from the box, and I can't. Not only have I got to do some research to understand what's late, what's early, and what relates to my art, I've even got to research all the colours for the inside. So for me, so far, the border element of this kit is not up to scratch, not good enough. Right, our clear parts next, and these come in this nice foam protective sleeve. We can take them out now and have a look. And the first thing I'm noticing, I don't know if that's you can see that on the camera, is this here. Fogging in the glass. So I have heard some horror stories about this, and yeah, that is not good. Right, okay. It's not scratched, it's just fogged. I'm going to have a closer look. Right, this looks like it's actually slightly abrased, and we've got the same issue here on this nose here. Slightly abrased. Now, we may be able to get that out. There are products that we could use to possibly do that. We could dip it and see if that sorts it in a clear varnish. We could possibly micro mesh and polish it out. That's an option. But I think these are being stacked on top of each other in the factory, because even if they're putting something between them, maybe while the plastic's still warm, because that is damage effectively. Everywhere there's a high spot, we've got more of it. That's dreadful. This is some of the worst clear parts I've ever seen. Now, I know that Border Models put a statement out about how difficult it was to make these. Rubbish. Everyone else can do it. You've just done a rubbish job of it. No excuses. I have to say, these are some of the worst clear parts I've ever seen. Look at the spidering in here. I mean, it looks like it's cracked. That is truly terrible. And the distortion is horrendous. Now, forming parts like this at this size, yeah, I get it. Difficult. But other people do 1/32 scale aircraft, and it's not like this. These are pretty shocking. Pretty shocking. I'm almost tempted to leave it off. It is that bad. Wow. Some of them aren't so bad. The flatter ones, they're okay, but there's a sort of milkiness to the glass. It's not in any way clear. I mean, even a flat part like this, you can see the spidering from the mix of the plastic. Now, I don't think Wingnut Wings have tooled this, and I'll tell you for why. Wingnut Wings would have had one connection point in the centre at the bottom, and there'd have only been one flow of plastic into that, and that would have avoided that. But it's milky as well. It's horrendous. It's really, really amateur. Yeah, sorry. That's another reason why I mean, we've got it here. We've got scratches here. And this is a very simple part. It's not a complex part like this. It's a really simple part, and they have done a terrible job of it. There's no other way of putting it. Those are some of the worst clear parts I've ever seen on a model, ever. Okay, photo etch now, and they're okay. I have definitely seen better. They look a bit toy-like somehow. If you look at the buckles, it's sort of etched on with a line, but there's no texture, as in to say there's no relief to make the buckle the high spot and the strap lower. So it's all at the same level, but it's been defined. So you're going to use a wash to define them, and maybe paint will make it stand out by painting the buckle aluminium or brass or whatever colour it's supposed to be. Who knows? The instructions certainly don't tell you. They're not too bad. I suggest if the aftermarket guys have jumped on this, that might be a better way to go. These look a little bit crude. I'm guessing that this was a border edition and not something that came from Wingnut Wings. Decals next, and a fairly small decal sheet, but we're not doing a whole aircraft, obviously. They're not cartograph. There's a fair amount of decal film around some of these decals, but the register looks good and the colour is nice, and they're actually quite matte. So for less advanced modelers who are just going to apply the decals on the top and then leave it, they don't look too bad in terms of the surface finish. What I will say is that there is a fair amount of risk of silvering on some of these just because of the amount of decal film, and it might be worth trying to chop some of that out at the time when you're doing the decals. We can see here these are all the decals for the equipment inside, and you're going to have to remove those carefully because there's quite a bit of decal film which is probably going to get in the way of a precise fit, particularly around all these dials. So they're not bad. I've seen better though. Well, as we're talking about the clear parts, at the bottom of the box I've found this. So let's read it together and see what they've got to say. About clear part 132 Lancaster border kit. Why don't they explain a problem that everyone cares about? ? I think I need to put what I know and what I have done to answer the confusion of my friends. The root of the problem lies in the two almost A4 size clear part plates of the kit. Okay. Such a layout area affects the final quality of injection moulding of transparent materials. Because the materials constituting a part is subjected to uneven injection pressure from multiple directions, and it needs to flow along paths with different cooling temperatures and other factors, resulting in convergence lines, traces. It's hard to be perfect in production. Of course, there might be a better injection moulding equipment or something, but I've noticed that these marks actually have very little visual impact on the finished product. Really? You want to look in my box then, mate? The video is a superfluous part, and there are obvious problems. You will find that these trace lines will only appear completely when there are no background to observe. I can absolutely assure you that that's not true. When my hand is in the background, you will find that the blemish almost disappears. Now watch my progress update and you'll see this is actually the case. The installed parts are in all more complex backgrounds and ambient light without affect the vision. Maybe now it's clear. Quite frankly, absolute nonsense. What he's basically admitting is, whoever this person is, because he doesn't put his name to it, and it says follow his video. What video is that? There's no link or anything to a video, so yeah. What he's basically saying is the plate is too big to make all those clear parts accurately. So why is it that they're doing it that way then? Why don't they put them on smaller plates and make the parts better like everyone else does? Because those are the worst clear parts I've ever seen. And I know what he's saying about colour in the background will make some of it disappear. It will lessen the effect, but actually it will still be visible, and quite frankly it will still ruin the model, and they know it's a problem to put that in the kit box. So basically I don't agree with what he's saying there. I've reviewed hundreds of kits and I've built hundreds and hundreds of kits, and that's the worst clear parts I've ever seen anyone do ever in any scale. So jog on, Mr. Boarder. Look at some plastic. All of our sprues come in separate clear plastic bags, and the larger plates that we saw in the instructions have been broken down into 2 smaller sprues and put in a bag. So they're boxed up in a different way than Wingnut Wings would have done it. They would have had a lower profile, wider box and put these in side by side that way. That's how they would have done it. What Boarder have done is they've stacked them all on top of each other in a box which has got quite a bit of rattle room. So these have moved around in the bag and therefore have some option to do some damage. They're all heat sealed bags, so once they're opened, and I know some people, Peter, don't like to open their bags, but I buy my models to build, not to sell on or to keep to add value, so I'm happy to look at them. Right then, so we've got our stand. It's nicely done. It's got a slightly textured finish, pebble dash type finish, and they've even managed to get the moulding go around the side quite well, so that's quite nice. This is our upstand, and that's important because I plan to put a figure on my stand. This gentleman here, Aero Bonus Pilot. So one of the things that I did, bought the Pilot and just chanced that it would fit, is there you go, you can see there's plenty of space under the Lancaster for a 132 scale crew member, so we're going to shove him on the end there. We'll have the Lancaster above it. I think that'll look pretty cool, and I think it sort of needs something in a way. I know the focus is the Lancaster and it should look stunning when done, but I think that just adds a little bit of a human touch and ties it in. So we've got the base plate, the front plate here which mounts the actual model, and then we've got our back plate, and that back plate I can see is stopping here, so we are going to be able to view through there into the model, which is nice. But I'm sort of, having seen those glass parts, I will have a go at sorting them out, but I'm sort of thinking, yeah, maybe we won't bother with them and do it that way. You can see that this was originally going to be Wingnut Wings because it uses their format of lettering and their sprue format where they used to block out a section and put all their information on. And rather than Wingnut Wings, it now says Boarder. You can even see where that's been sort of retooled. We have our Bombay doors here, and you can actually see some really subtle canning. There is some nice texturing there, but it's not overdone like you sometimes see. This is nicely done. We've got double rivets and single rivets, all raised. If this is Wingnut Wings, I know they've done their research, so I'm not going to question it. Looks fabulous. Nothing wrong with those parts, fairly basic parts though. This next sprue really gives you an idea of the size of this model. I mean, to my hand, and I've not got the biggest hands in the world, I'm glad to say, because that won't help me with my modelling, will it? It's about the size of my hand. So we can see here, this is the point that's going to mount into the stand. So you're sort of going to see all of this bit onwards. So that's, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Look at all this texturing. I don't know if we can see that on the camera. I will take some photographs at the end of the video and show you some close-ups and different angles. But yeah, that is really nice. Now, there won't be any interior detail because we have a separate interior, as we saw. Some lovely fine moulded detail in there, though. Crisp as you like. Fairly thin as well. It's quite a clever piece of moulding. Yeah, it's got some lovely texturing. You can lots of raised rivet detail. You can feel that as I pass my fingers over it. We can see some big fastener heads as well. We've got some other bits here, so there's some detail even on this piece here, which will be on the inside of one of these glass domes at the front. I think that's the gun one, isn't it? Even at the back, you've got some detail, so you'll be able to pose it and see some fastener detail. So that's a nice touch. I have noticed there is some quite heavy ejector pin marks in there, so if we're going to see the inside of that, that will need dealing with. Same on that one. That's quite rough. I'm hoping that that gets covered. Bulkhead. Cabling's all in place, and it's really done with some finesse. It's really nice and light. Yeah, just paint that up and give it a wash. Some delicate detail painting needed there. And as we look at these parts, yeah, same again. A little bit of scoring can be done just to round off some of this, because obviously when they mould something that's spherical, they can only do the top and side surfaces. So the sides tend to be flat, and you actually want them to curve underneath. So you can just get in corner of a tip of a fresh blade and just scrape that out underneath, so that rather than having a flat edge, it just rounds off, and that you'll be amazed what a difference that makes to the look. Lots of cable run here. Yeah, nothing wrong with any of that. Very nice. I will take some photos, so wait till the end of the video for some close-ups. Okay, our next sprue, this is G. And this really has the main large interior part. So we've got our two interior sidewalls, the floor pan, which has nothing on the underside. I wasn't sure because thinking of putting a Bombay in. Not that I'm thinking of doing it, but if you were. Then we've got the more forward nose sections. So let's have a look. Moulding, first of all, very, very crisp. There's no flash. I don't see any sink. Texturing is good. Look at the seat, for example. You've got some nice creases there. It's not uniform. They're tugging in different directions. So that all looks natural. So that's really quite beautiful, actually. Then you've got all these cable runs, and some of these have been really cleverly, there's some deep scooping out of these between this to make them look individual, and that really does help the look of this. On the inside, the concern always is with big parts where there's a curve, the direction that the tool has to come in, that means you're going to get some misshaped parts, and actually they've minimized that quite a bit. There is one or two. You can see you've got a thick sidewall there on that cable, which shouldn't be there. So you might want to chop that out and replace it, because you can see where it goes. Make a replacement, then chop it out when you know you can recover it. But in the main, a dark wash after you've painted it and everything will just pop. And you've got to remember that you're only going to see this in a fairly limited way as well. So it's up to the individual modeler if they want to go to town or just make the best of what they have. That's always the case, isn't it? Yeah, so we can see here, look, you can see how, because this is sticking up at an angle, that should be nice and crisp and round, and you've got this distortion here, which is the limitations of the modelling tool. So you almost think they should have done that as a separate piece to put on, to be honest, but anyway. Some nice cabling, really crisp moulded detail around all these various dials and switches and things and knobs. They're all really well defined. We can see all the connection points for these cables here, so I'm guessing that there'll be cables that plug in at the back there. And this looks like bit of material, almost like a curtain that's dropped down there, so that looks nice. Imagine this all painted up. Of course, you're going to have to know the colours, but yeah, lovely. Really, really nice. The detail is stunning. Really is stunning. Once you've detail painted this, it will look splendid. And that looks really busy. We've got all the little handles and bits and pieces. So yeah, it looks like a Lancaster, and surely that's what we're trying to get to, so all looks good. Now I must say, I have found that on some of these bags the heat seal has failed, and they're either partially open or in this case fully open. So that means if you've got an older kit or you've got one of these in the stash, it's probably worth bulking it out with a bit of tissue paper or newspaper or something to stop the sprues moving about, because there is quite a bit of movement in the box. Right, sprue B, got lots and lots of small parts on here, including our frames for the windows, and there's part of me that's going, you know what, just leave the frames in and don't put the glass on, and I know it wouldn't look right, but it'd be better than what we've got. I could do with someone doing an aftermarket clear parts, really, couldn't we? Anyway, let's have a look at these. We've got a whole variety of parts from equipment, bulkheads, panels. We've got lots of sort of ribs, internal ribs and structures, all sorts of cabling, conduit, hoses, lots and lots of stuff, and it all looks very Wingnut Wings. It's nicely laid out, clearly laid out, easy to get into all the parts to clear them up. The sprue gates are often in places where you're not going to see them, so wherever they can attach them to a mounting point, they appear to have done so, though clearly on things like hoses that's not always possible all the way around. There are a number of parts that simply have one sprue gate, which helps with your cleanup. So there is some thought in this. It is nicely laid out, like I say. We've got some very, very small parts, and look what they've done on these little small, I'm guessing they're like knobs or something. They've got a little fork in the gate, which means that basically you cut them off very carefully, and that's it, your cleanup's done. There is no seam or anything on these. I mean, if you look at this part, for example, you'd expect seam to run through at the halfway point in the tool. There is absolutely nothing. They have spent time engineering seam and that type of stuff out, so that's good. Some really, really nice detail, and when you've painted that up, it is going to look terrific. Again, I'll take some photographs so you can see it. I mean, look at that part there. How nice is that? Nice cushioning there. All looks nice. Padding, I should say. All looks natural. As I'm flipping over, most of this side won't be seen. It's the affixed side, but if, for example, you're having the seat folded down, you have got one or two ejector marks to clean up. But yeah, that is really, really nice. Our last sprue of parts now, and this is sprue A, and what we can see is again a collection of a lot of tiny parts. None of this is slide moulded, which means that our guns here are solid and need to be drilled out a little bit to give them an opening. But as you can see, the detail is absolutely stunning. Really crisply moulded, and the ammunition belt there. I've only got my reading glasses on, but I can see all the ammunition there clearly. A little bit of flash on one or two of these parts, but absolutely beautifully done. We've got all these little bulkheads here, all sorts of different shapes, and then again, where we've got soft parts, we've got some nice texturing. There is a lot of detail being built into this kit, and it will take time. Don't underestimate it just because it's a nose only. It's a fair size. I don't know what the part count is, but it's a fair size kit. And look at these harnesses on the seat. They look gorgeous. That I think is definitely nicer than the photo etch. So I know there was 2 options, but that I think would be my preference, to be honest, unless I went aftermarket. But yeah, lovely detail. Well thought through. Just looks natural, doesn't it? Everything just looks natural. Realism is what you're looking for, and realism is what they're delivering, and that's before you start adding some paints to it to build on that realism. So the groundwork that's been done by the plastic part tooling is superb. Look at how intricate this part is here. Look at that. The moulding on there is really clever. For basic moulding, no slide moulding, basic cheap as chips moulding, that's really nicely done. Yeah. Right, I will take some photographs, but let's just do a summary of my first impressions of this kit. Right then, what is my first impression of the Border 1:32 scale Lancaster nose art kit? Well, I think you've probably picked up it's a game of 2 halves. The Wingnut Wings half and the Border half. And the Wingnut Wings stuff, the plastic, the tooled plastic is absolutely superb. It's beautiful, it's delicate, it's eloquent, it's a really nice kit. That stops the moment you get to the crossover point where Borderers picks it up. So the instructions, probably workable, but leave a little bit to the imagination and a fair bit of research needed, which is not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for when I build a model, I want to be able to open the box, get the instructions out, get the parts out, be able to follow the instructions and build the model. I should be able to build that model without knowing anything about it. That's my bar on what a good model build up should be. Should be able to build the model by following the instructions. But I can't do that with this. I have to go and do a load of research on a subject that I might not be interested in. I might have bought this just because I like the look of it, or I like Wingnut Wings, so I want to build something that I know is Wingnut Wings. So Border let the modeler down. So they are below my bar when it comes to the instructions. They're below my bar when it comes to their plastic clear parts as well, which, despite their disclaimer that they've put in there to say, well, there's nothing we could do about it, my lord. Yeah, you could have tooled it better. You know, if it wasn't right, retool it, make it right, because we're going to spend a lot of money on this. But no, what you've actually done is you've actually said, oh, we've made it this way. Doesn't look great, does it? Anyway, you'll have to lump it, and here's our excuse, which isn't good enough, quite frankly, from my point of view. Might be able to deal with it, might be able to sort it out, might be able to lessen the effect, but it's not good enough. I should be able to take a box of parts and build it up and have something that looks reasonable in this day and age. You know, in the 50s we made clear parts better than that, so how come we're not doing it in the 2020s? So no excuses for the clear parts, I'm sorry. They should be clear, forgetting the distortion, take the distortion discussion out of it. They should be clear, they should be see-through, and they should be without any inclusions, spidering, marks, scratches. But we've got all of those. So, sorry, the clear parts are rubbish. Real junk. So, yeah, not impressed with that at all. Decals, they look okay. Photo etch, it's alright, but it's a bit less sophisticated than other etch, and I would encourage you to maybe look elsewhere for your seat harnesses. But put the time in, a lot of detail painting and some weathering, and you could really make the interior of this kit pop. The exterior of the kit is just as good with all the canning on and the texturing. I have no doubt it will build up to be a beautiful kit. What will spoil it, unless you do something about them, is the clear parts. But yeah, I think it's a lovely kit. Is it worth the money? I want to say yes, but at the same time, if everything in the kit, if everything came in the kit, even with the instructions being a bit rubbish, with no instructions on how to paint the interior, even with that, I'd be going, yeah, this is definitely a kit to get. But when you've got to put so much effort into finishing the manufacturer's job, why am I paying the manufacturer for a complete product when they haven't given me a complete product? So I have to say, no, I don't think it is. I think really Border should have done better, or shouldn't have done it at all. And I'm grateful for Border for bringing out this Wingnut Wings tooling. A lot of people are going to love building this model. I'm going to love building this model, but I'm already going into it before I've even cut my first part off the sprue with a slightly bitter taste in my mouth that I know I've got those clear parts coming. And I know I've got to spend ages on the internet to find out how to paint it, although I do have a solution. And I'll mention that in a minute. So there you have it. That is my first impression of the kit. It's a great plastic kit, but you're going to have to put some effort in to deliver it to its best, because Border couldn't be bothered to. Now, if you want to know how to paint the interior of this kit, then I strongly recommend you go over to Nigel's modelling bench. This gentleman here, Nigel's modelling bench, who has built the 132 scale full Lancaster, which includes the interior, and you can see how he's gone about it. So he's a Lancaster enthusiast, so we know that he will have got it right. So if you follow that, you're not going to go wrong. No point doing all that research and reinventing the wheel when this gentleman's done it for you. So pop over to Nigel's and have a look at his build of the 132 Lanc to get you your interior, because the interior is the same. My final comment on this is quite typical of what I call the Me Too manufacturers. So there are a number of modelling manufacturers that have been around for many, many years, and their focus is the customer and pleasing the customer and giving the customer what they want, and they continuously improve. So I'm talking about Tamiya, obviously, Airfix we can include in there, Revell to a lesser extent, but even companies like ICM, Miniart, they are trying to do the best for their customer. There are a number of manufacturers, however, who go, oh yeah, we make model kits too. And they're basically, it's just about the revenue. It's just about sales. And what they're doing is they're making some very nice detailed model kits, and then they're throwing in some 3D printed parts and some photo etch and all that, trying to hit all those little notes that they know that will turn people's heads, and then they're giving you that, but actually they're not putting the effort in. And I think they don't really care about the modeler so much. What they're interested in is selling and selling volume. If they were interested in the modeler, they'd be thinking about how the modeler builds it and the information the modeler needs. And Border is not alone in being a manufacturer that cannot be bothered. I could point you in the direction of Kinetic. I could point you in the direction of Rayfield's models. They're all doing the same. Poor instructions, poorly thought out models. There you go. This, unfortunately, has an element of that, but there is enough of the Wingnut Wings in the DNA of this kit to make it worth purchasing. Not going to recommend it. What I'm going to say is you now know what you get in the box. You're forewarned, you're forearmed. It is going to need some serious work to sort out those clear parts. So some polishing skills, some other products. So because of the clear parts, I'd say not for the faint-hearted. Okay, thanks for looking in. You enjoy your modelling. I'll see you very soon. You enjoy these detail photos. Bye for now.